New Year is a good time to make predictions about the coming year and to adopt resolutions that will supposedly make the coming year better. I've got a prediction for 2025 and I've got a proposed resolution, which I think we should begin with as soon as possible. The prediction is that 2025 will be the year in which serious discussion begins of the possibility of rejoining the European Union. Of course, there are people who already mention it, but it's not something which is regarded as a proper topic of political debate in the country's political elite. This is a shameful conspiracy of silence. Most members of the British political elite know that Brexit is a disaster and that the only way of rectifying it is to reverse it. But for electoral and political reasons, they keep quiet about it. I think that conspiracy is going to be undermined. I think it's going to break down by the end of the year. Obviously, we're not going to rejoin the European Union this year or next year. We're not even going to begin negotiations. But this will be the year where serious discussion begins and a gathering wave of how we can and should rejoin the European Union. I think there are three reasons why I make this prediction. The first is that the supposed reset, which the government has put forward or hopes to embrace, is going to be shown to be a lamentable failure. Already there are sarcastic remarks in the newspapers and continental commentators about a reset of a reset, that the government have changed their mind about what they want and what they're willing to offer. I predict that there will be a number of resets of the reset because there is no satisfactory reset in any case, as long as the United Kingdom is outside the European Union. And certainly there's not even the beginnings of a satisfactory reset when Keir Starmer sticks to his red lines of not joining the single market, not joining the customs union, not having freedom of movement. From the European Union's point of view, the Brexit that was negotiated in 2019 by Boris Johnson is rather a satisfactory arrangement. They don't have any particular incentive to want to unpick it. If it is going to be unpicked, then it will have to be on the basis of British concessions, of British offers that will make it attractive for the European Union to revisit this issue. We've had a good example of this in the youth mobility scheme, the proposed youth mobility scheme, which the British government, has rejected on the basis that it would lead to freedom of movement. This, of course, is nonsense. But it's certainly true that the proposal which has come from the Commission is not one that's particularly favourable or particularly attractive at the moment to the British government. It will require negotiation, but it will certainly also require concessions on the part of the British side, because the British side is not negotiating with the European Union from a position of strength. It's not even really negotiating from a position of equality. It's negotiating from the position of essentially a suppliant. There is some truth in the Eurosceptic claim that if you wanted to remain in the European Union, you should have remained in the European Union. And the halfway house, which the cherry picking, which Keir Starmer seems to advocate, is a recipe for an unsatisfactory and unsustainable new equilibrium. I think that will become clearer and clearer as the year goes on. There is no satisfactory reset. There's only rejoin that makes sense, which will put the United Kingdom on a position of equality with the European Union, something it can't be at the moment. The second reason, I think, is the changing nature of British public opinion on the subject of the European Union. There are enough opinion polls which demonstrate a settled view within the United Kingdom now, a view of the electorate, that Brexit was a mistake. And it's something that needs not merely to be tinkered with, but to be reversed. I can't believe that indefinitely the British political system will be entirely unresponsive to that gathering storm of British political opinion. At the moment, the Rejoin EU party is the only party which is talking seriously about the possibility of rejoining the European Union. The Liberal Democrats seem to regard it as a long-term aspiration, as do the Greens. But they're a bit like St. Augustine. Oh, Lord, make me chaste, but not yet. Brexit is something which is to be worked around and to be accepted for the foreseeable future. It's only in a distant and unnamed future that Rejoin will become, according to other political parties, a real possibility. The Rejoin EU party just doesn't accept that pessimistic analysis. If we recognise that the European Union is incomplete without the United Kingdom and the United Kingdom is incomplete without the European Union, then that's an undesirable situation that needs to be resolved and reversed as soon as possible. I don't know whether it will be the Labour Party or the Liberal Democrats or the Greens or all of them that make the case or begin to make the case for rejoining, but I'm quite clear that there will be representatives from all those parties by the end of 2025 making the point that it's only by rejoining that we can rectify the problems of Brexit. The third reason why I think things will change over this year, I think has to do with the internal politics of the Labour Party. The Labour Party, and Keir Starmer in particular, have been much criticised for their lack of an overarching narrative of a political message which can inspire their followers or potential followers. Keir Starmer is well aware that the result in 2024 for his party was something of an electoral fluke. He got 2/3 of the MPs with only 1/3 of the votes cast. And that's a phenomenon of our strange first past the post system, but it can't really be expected to be reproduced in 2028 or 2029. He's also very worried about the way in which reform seem in a number of constituencies to be the most plausible opponents of the Labour Party. His recipe for dealing with these problems has been, particularly on migration, to edge himself and his party undesirably closer to the reform analysis. And I think that that's a course which is destined for disaster. If people want reform ideas, then they'll go to reform for them. The Labour Party needs a clear alternative to reform and to the Conservative analysis, and that can best be incorporated and symbolised by a desire to rejoin the European Union. If you want to put clear water between yourself and the right wing of the political spectrum, then the Labour Party has very little choice in the medium term other than commit itself to rejoining the European Union. That will also have the advantage of providing a coherent economic narrative for the Labour Party in its attempts to increase growth, employment, and general prosperity within the United Kingdom. As long as we have this ball and chain, which we put upon ourselves, of Brexit, then the prospects for growth and economic advance must be limited. The Labour Party, and perhaps Keir Starmer in particular, seem to have expected that turning up in Brussels and not being the Conservative Party will be enough to reset the United Kingdom's relationships with the European Union. They also seem to have expected that not being the Conservative Party and being the rational alternative to the Conservative Party would of itself be sufficient to galvanise the British economy into renewed efforts. Well, that's not going to work on its own. You need something which will boost British growth, boost the British economy in a way that is plausible both to external investors and to people within the country. And the commitment, at least to rejoin the single market, if that were possible, which I rather doubt, but it will be a start. The commitment to rejoin the single market will be something which would inspire confidence enormously within the British economy. So I've mentioned that the Rejoin EU party is the only party that takes seriously advocacy of rejoining the European Union. My New Year resolution, which I think we should begin immediately. We don't want to be like the man who decides as a New Year resolution to give up procrastination starting in May. We want to start now. We want to hit the ground running. We should, if we want to rejoin the European Union, we shouldn't be ashamed to say so. There's a view that we can rejoin the European Union, as it were, by small steps that will get some advantage for musicians, will get some advantage for actors, some advantage for professional service providers. I don't believe in that. I don't believe it's possible. It would take a long time, and I don't think it makes the essential case for rejoining, which is that the United Kingdom is a middle-sized European power that is best served by working on a level of equality with its colleagues and neighbours within the European Union. Most of the detractors of the European Union relied on fantasy and, in some cases, lies to undermine Britain's position within the European Union. We want to return, and we want to return as soon as possible. The Rejoin EU party will be fighting over the coming years as many by-elections and other elections as is possible. And we hope that you, our listeners and potential supporters, will take this opportunity, will take every opportunity we offer you to put pressure on the government, not merely to think about resetting its relationship with the European Union, but to do the only rational thing, which is to rejoin the European Union and to rejoin as soon as possible. I wish you all a very happy 2025 and look forward to being able to look back on 2025 as a time in which rejoining the European Union became a realistic political discussion point within the United Kingdom. Thank you very much.
Vote Rejoin EU. Join the EU vision.